Happy Sunday. I hope that everybody is doing very well. I hope that you're getting some spring sun wherever you may be and that life is treating you well. Life is not treating Daniel Tate so well, and that's what this video is about. So I wanted to draw your attention to Daniel Tate. If you haven't already heard about him, he is a patriot who became fed up with the modus operandi of permitting radical Marxists and indigenous activists, BLM activists, anti-fascists, just your run-of-the-mill red-green alliance type of professional protesters to lay waste on our history. I'd like to draw your memories back to 2020 at the height of the COVID regime. You may remember that we were all supposed to be locked in our homes because of this deadly virus, but somehow those rules did not apply to Black Lives Matter activists who hit the streets and began to riot. One of the forms of rioting was taken on with vandalism, and statues of historical figures around Canada were targeted. So there was Queen Victoria statue, multiple John A. Macdonald statues were vandalized or pulled down entirely. Some statues were decapitated, some were covered in paint. Various riots took place, and during the course of the riots, there were all sorts of violent and property destroying events. So one statue in particular was bothering Daniel Tate. He's a Toronto man, and for 5 years he was passing by a boarded up John A. Macdonald statue. For people who may not know, John A. Macdonald was Canada's first prime minister. And this statue was vandalized so many times by the radicals that in the infinite wisdom of the powers that be, they decided to board it up with plywood and not address the problem, which was the crime. In any event, 1 year passed, then 2 years passed, then 3 years passed, 4 years passed, and 5 years passed. And finally, Daniel Tate decided that he was going to spray paint something on the plywood. So again, not on the statue, on the plywood. And what he spray painted was a message that said, "Free John." Now, it's important to understand that for decent people, for people who don't want their cities and their historical figures and landmarks and private property and public property to be destroyed, of course, some people may think to themselves, well, you do something like that, we don't want people spray painting all over the place. I think that Daniel Tate, I don't speak for him, I don't know the man, but I think he would probably be the first person to agree with that. But what he was doing was trying to draw attention to the fact that John A. Macdonald was still in a box. I didn't even know this until recently. I probably learned about this a couple months ago through X, and somebody making a comment. I had no idea. In Montreal, they tore down the John A. Macdonald statue altogether in front of the police. Nobody was charged. Nobody was stopped. So, bringing this back to the idea that people should face consequences for antisocial and criminal behavior, I think that we can all agree on that. But the people who destroyed the statues, who dragged them down, all of their charges have been stayed. I started to do a bit of a deep dive on this, and I discovered that there are so many mentally ill and obvious paid protesters in the circuit of people whose charges were stayed that I couldn't possibly profile everybody. So instead of attempting to profile everybody, I just picked one. So the man that I'm going to contrast with Daniel Tate, his name is Miguel Martin Avila Velarde. He is Peruvian, from Peru, I should say. And he arrived in Canada 30 years ago, I believe. Man is 60 years old. So he's, in his 50s and 60s. And up to all sorts of criminal activity. He went through periods of homelessness, and I think at this point is living in some type of public housing, although it's not clear to me whether or not he has been evicted, because it seems that he tried to kick somebody's door down for a noise complaint. He is fundraising for that. So Miguel Martin Avila Velarde, if you go through his Instagram or his Facebook, you will see that he is a radical. There is no cause that he is not showing up for to raise mayhem over. He presents himself as a Canadian Indigenous rights activist, but again, he's Peruvian. So perhaps he's Indigenous in Peru. I don't know if that's just a blanket now that anybody can just, declare themselves part of the cause. It's not my cause. I don't know the rules. In any event, in June 2021, he was at an Indigenous rally in Hamilton. And, sorry, I have an interruption here. One sec. Bear with me. Sorry about that. I'm back. Okay, so Avila Velarde had said about the day where they toppled the statue. What did they do? So, speaking to the Spectator, presumably the Hamilton Spectator, Avila Velarde said he was just one of the many attendees that helped to pull the statue down that day. So what they did, they used rope, they tied it around the statue's neck, they pulled it down, the statue was painted red, they damaged it with an angle grinder and a hammer, left it face up with pieces of cedar scattered over it. So this was Canada's first prime minister. So this wasn't obviously a spontaneous, not that would be better, but it wasn't a spontaneous decision to do this. People don't walk around with an angle grinder and hammer. Not normal people anyway. Maybe these people do. So he called to turn himself in. Then he was speaking with the paper. He was charged with mischief, over $5,000 initially, but of course the charges were stayed. And what did he say about this? He said, quote, "It was a day where people were tired," end of quote. He said, quote, "I have to support them. They are my people," end of quote. So no other arrests were made in that case. And so this was a situation in which a statue was completely destroyed. And you compare that with Daniel Tate, who is facing criminal charges. So what Daniel Tate is facing tomorrow at the courthouse is up to, they'll decide, up to 2 years in prison. It's a mischief charge of mischief under $5,000. Under $5,000, it's a piece of plywood, probably costs $10. I don't know. I don't work in construction, but I'm thinking I could probably have it replaced myself for the city of Toronto. And the cost that they're going to have of this absolute lawfare spectacle is going to vastly outstrip the cost of the plywood. But the point is really about the two-tier lawfare. The point is that the managerial regime, so the prosecutor who's making these decisions, the judges who are permitting the prosecutors, they're rubber stamping the prosecutor's decision, the politicos who are advising the prosecutors on what the priorities are, the mayor, the prime minister, because criminal charges are federal, the chief of police, all of these managerial regime roles are filled by people who have decided that we need to erase our history. We need to make Canadians feel ashamed of our founders, of our heroes, of anything good or bad that happened over history that is a completely normal part of the human experience, needs to be erased. So what I'm asking people to do, if you do not live in Toronto, please share not only my video, but the video of Daniel himself. He is not on X, so I have put up his information. You can find him on Instagram at integrity_TO. So that is a commercial. So I don't know what it is in English. INTEGRITY_TO on Instagram. But I'll also include the video. So what he has asked for so far is he's asked for support. He's asked for people to show up. So he will be in room 202 tomorrow, Monday, April 7th at 10 Armoury Street in downtown Toronto. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but regardless of what happens, if the charges are stayed or not, we need to make sure that people understand what is going on here, because the two-tier lawfare is right up and down. We have had pro-Hamas thugs, many of whom are obviously paid, because nobody has this kind of time to devote to raising mayhem in cities. It's a full-time job for these people, essentially. So we have them on our streets. We had BLM on our streets. We have Indigenous rights people on our streets. We have Antifa. There are no shortage of these thugs, and they are not being charged, or they're being charged, and then the charges are being stayed, or they're being kicked down into a diversion. So something on like anger management or mental health. The criminal charges don't stay. The people get right back on the streets, do the same thing, these professional protesters. So people need to understand it isn't organic. There's money behind this. And the managerial regime, which is the state, which is the liberal government, which is the liberal stacked courts, is permitting this to happen. Liberal diversity hires in the police department, they're permitting this to happen. Liberal prosecutors who are staying the charges once the information is out of the public eye, they're permitting it to happen. State apparatchik Pravda, state-sponsored media that don't cover it, that don't shine a light on these people, that present them in the most egregiously dishonest way possible, they are part of the problem. Like the press didn't even look up this man. This man has all sorts of issues. He had a MAID application at one point. You know, he has supposed mental health issues that caused him to cause property damage on subsidized housing, from what I understand. He is an advocate for the drug shoot up, whatever they call them, for the druggies there, like subsidized druggie places. I don't know. There's a proper word. Anyway, he is not a reasonable individual. And the fact that he has permitted a foreigner to come to Canada and then just become a professional agitator, trying to erase our own history from under our feet, presenting himself as some kind of hero, and the press is not even covering this, is outrageous. It is outrageous. Our tax dollars are going to fund the politicians. Our tax dollars are funding the police departments. Our tax dollars are funding the construction workers who have to clean up this mess. Our taxes are funding the people who have to maintain the public property, the maintenance crews. The taxes are funding the press with subsidies, the press who lie to people and who make them think that it's acceptable for people to be attacking our own history. So it really is, this video really is a call to wake people up. People complain, you know, oh, no patriots are doing anything about what's going on. Well, Daniel Tate has done something. So let's all support him. Again, if you can't be in Toronto tomorrow at 10 Armoury Street, room 202 at 2 p.m., then, you know, write to your local MP or pick up the phone, email them, call your local police department, ask them what they've been doing about the vandals, these professional paid protesters. Tell your municipal councillor that you're not happy with the way the resources are being allocated. You know, just make some noise. Have a conversation with your neighbor about what's going on. You know, write to Daniel and find how best you can support him. Just do something, because there are people who are making an effort to take on these Marxist radicals who want to destroy everything that is decent and good about our country. And if we don't take a stand, there will be nothing left to restore. We're basically standing on the ash heaps at this point. And so please, Let's wake up our politicians. Let's wake up our sleepy neighbors, and let's wake up the elbows up crowd. They're such patriots. One would think that they don't want our own history to be destroyed, right? Elbows up, liberals. You're going to help us out on this one, right? Anyway, I hope everybody has a good day, and please share the information, share, comment, tag politicians, tag whomever you think might be interested in this, and let's get the word out.